Welcome back to the Smartbuild implementation series. We're in part 16, labor. So when a lot of our customers set Smartbuild up to use in day-to-day sales, a question that comes up is, well, I know I can have it quote my materials, my framing, sheeting, trim, trusses, things like that, but can I also have it quote the labor for me? And the answer is yes, and that could be in a variety of ways. So it may be that you automate your labor and you have it turned on where as you're designing the job, as you're making changes, editing porches, adding doors, windows, there's a labor factor that's just working in the back end. And we would do that in a package item where it's adding a certain amount for each item that you add to the job. It adds a labor amount. Another way that you can set up labor is simply check a box like this, click a box, click the check mark here, and just put an amount in. So maybe you want to put in $12,000, and you have your way that you're going to quote your labor. Maybe your salesperson has this way that he quotes labor, and you simply do that and you check, and it would add this labor line item to your job review, to your summary, and all that, and your total price. So that's one way. Another way that you could do labor. But for the first part of this video, we want to get into the setup wizard and the actual labor tab. And then that kind of segues into what we need to do in the packages and all that. So we go to settings and the setup wizard, and we are in the labor section. And if you're starting a new setup, you're going to see something like this. Maybe you're coming back and you want to set your labor up, and maybe there's nothing in here. So there's just a couple examples in here to get you thinking on how you could use this. And you could also think of labor as subcontract items that you want to add to the job. And in this case, I've got this example set up. Maybe you sub out the concrete, or your crew does it themselves and you include it, but you also want it itemized out in the job. So another example. Now, the first thing we need to figure out is when it comes to quoting the man hours or the labor to construct the project, that's the first thing we want to focus on. How do you do that? Is it a per man hour, or is it a dollar amount per square foot? So you may need more than one way or more than one line item, because these are the part numbers that we're using to build out the packages to actually quote the labor. So an example is if I want to start with just a SKU that says maybe labor cost or something, you can set it up, just have labor as a SKU, put in a description, the selling units each, and the quantity is one, and then the cost is one. So $1. And this is so that we can use a $1 as a multiplier. And again, you could save that. And then another way would be if we want to quote every job by the man hour. So if you quote everything by $60 per man hour, and you know it takes so many hours to put a window in, you would charge 2.5 hours per window. So that's another way. So you may want to have either a dollar amount that's $1, or you want to have a per man hour rate. And sometimes some companies use both. So maybe this is labor by the man hour. You have a SKU, you have a description. And again, you can set these up. If they're not in here, you can just add them. But to add a new item, you simply click the plus sign, put in the SKU, the description, and then the cost and price. Sometimes these are the same, and you can have a markup preset in there. So if we look at this man hour when the labor to construct that I've got here, it just has a $41 rate straight through, and it is not taxable. So I don't have the taxable turned on, and the markup's locked. So all that lock markup means is if you're in a job and you double click on the grand total price here, it allows you to adjust the markup on any given job. And items that are locked that have this checkbox will not mark up. They'll stick to their price you have set back here. So again, these are just think of all the different factors that you may want to add. Subcontracts, maybe you charge a different rate for window installs. So maybe you want a window labor. There's an example in here. Maybe you have $50 per hour to put in windows, or you hire your door installs out. Maybe an overhead door installer charges you a certain rate. So we need to start by getting that man hour rate in here as a line item. And then that takes us into our next part. So if we go back into that job that I had, the sample job, and we look at labor, when I turn this labor on or check this box, I'm simply using a $1 to $1 item when I check this custom box. So when I say that I'm going to use a custom labor, I'm simply answering a question that says how many of these $1 SKUs do I want? And I say 12,000, so it equals $12,000. So it's pretty simple that way. Now, if I were using my automated labor, the example that I have in here to kind of give you some ideas, that's a different case. It actually uses the man hours, and everything's broke down into man hours. So when I turn on this sample complete package, check it on, and it just basically asks some questions. Now you could set these up to where they may be different questions. Again, these are all just examples. We recommend to deleting these out or adding new ones to customize this menu. And we'll talk about customizing this menu. This is in the package menu in the back end. So again, these are some sample questions that we're dealing with, maybe that the salesperson could answer to help Smartbuild know what you actually want to quote. So for the first example, we will open up the package menu and we'll get into that and talk about how you can set up a package that is strictly a $1 item, like I have this custom setup where the salesperson can simply enter an amount and it corresponds directly into the job with that exact amount. So we would do this as a question. And in order to set up a question, we can use this question button here. And what is that question that you want to ask the salesperson? So if we say, enter an amount here, we just type in our question. Maybe it's enter an amount for labor. And you have it defaulted to 0, or could be defaulted to whatever you want. So we hit OK. So it builds this question into the formula for you. And before we leave here, this is good on the formula, but you do have to assign that $1 line item. And again, I'm using this non-taxable cost. That's the one I used. It's just $1, $1, and I save this. So since I set that up as a question, now when I go into a job and I check this custom item and check it on, it will open up looking just like this, enter labor and amount. And I put in a line item and I hit OK, and it adds it to that job. So that's one way that you can set up labor. Now the next example would be this complete package that we have in here. And again, I would recommend spending some time looking through this, editing it. But a good example is starting out with this line item number 2. And it's pretty complex if you look at the formula, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that in depth. It can be much simpler. And it may be that you can look at this as an example, and maybe you just do your square foot of floor. And if we start fresh here, the square foot of floor could be, so if we do SF floor, look at all of our different calculations that we could use. So the SF floor is available to use. And I could just take the square foot of floor, and maybe you charge so much per square foot. And if that's true, if you say I want to charge $6 per square foot, you could do SF floor, you do the asterisk sign, and then a number 6. And then our line item would be that non-taxable cost. It's $1. So this is, when you turn this on, this is automatically going to quote $6 per square foot of floor throughout the entire project. So no matter how many square feet are in the project, it would charge $6. So if you think, okay, I want to make that a little bit smarter, that's where this autocomplete labor was set up to be a little more advanced. So it says, if the square foot of floor is less than or equal to 300, use this multiplier. If it's 500, use this multiplier. And then this multiplier corresponds with this man-hour rate. So again, you're welcome to use this one. It's probably not exact. The easiest thing you can do is just dial in your man-hour rate. So if you look at this labor calculation here, and you would adjust your man-hour rate up or down to what your local area is, it may very well be that this formula works pretty well for you. So there's a few others here. And basically the way this was set up, we started out with the square foot price, and then we kept deducting off of that to add other factors. So you may have a certain rate that you use for windows. So for every window, we're doing the number of windows times 2.5. And if you ask, okay, what does 2.5 mean? It just basically means times the man hour. So it's saying it takes 2.5 hours to put in a window. Now, putting the window in may not take that long, but overall, how long does that window take you? By the time you frame it in, trim it out, how much more time does that each window cost you in the entire job? So that's kind of how this is set up. So again, you can get more advanced where you can ask the salesperson, are we even installing the windows? Maybe you're just framing them in. So again, this is a little more technical. It actually asks the salesperson if you're installing them, and the salesperson can do an override in the job and say, no, we're just supplying the windows. The homeowner is going to put them in himself. You could actually put a 0 in here, so it would default out and not install those windows. So again, this is how you can use this as an example to get started. We will have more training on packages, but that's just a really quick overview of, setting up some basic packages and the labor items, how you get them in there. So first, you need a calculator item here that you can add to your packages. So start in the settings setup wizard, add some items in here that you want to calculate with. After this is done, save all, and then you can jump over into packages. And that's where, again, if you're starting new, you're going to have these examples here to work with. I would recommend at least reviewing them and maybe customizing them to what you need to do instead of just leaving them as is. Come in here and clean out, delete any line items that you don't need. Maybe you never install Radiant under the slab. You could simply click on this line item, click delete, and scroll to the top and save all. So you can clean up this package and make it your own instead of starting from scratch. So if we go back into the job and the model that we had here, for example, this by setting up labor, it can really start to bring out the full value of Smartbuild. And one reason is if you do options in a job, labor activated, it can really multiply the benefits of the labor and Smartbuild in general. Because with labor turned on here, and it's calculating everything about this project, including the porch, everything that I'm doing here. If you want to use the create option button here, now you don't have to do the math and figure out, okay, if I do an option, something like maybe deleting this porch, so I create an option, I click here, and I delete this attached building. So maybe you're over budget with the customer and you just want to give them an option to get rid of the porch. You could simply create an option, delete the porch, and if you have labor set up, now it can look at the difference, know the difference it takes to build this project, and you simply save the option. And when you do that, you can see, well, it's $976 or whatever. If your pricing set up, you'll probably have a different amount, but whatever that is, and then you can put it in as no porch option and save it and it goes on to your job review. So that's how the create option working with labor can really give you more benefits to the tool overall. And if you're curious on how do you get this create option set up, you have to have at least one package in your database that's set up as an option. So again, kind of getting into packages a little bit, but if you only have bundles and add-ons, you do have to have one option in order to make that work out. In order to make that all work, you have to have one option. So this is a really quick video on showing how to set up labor, getting those items into your database. So I hope this helps everyone, and we'll see you next time.